I'm so sorry I had to bother your parents again to watch the girls. Really, Fred, I could have picked them up myself, Anya said, her voice carrying a note of unease, as if she was troubling him with something trivial while he lay in a hospital bed. Then you wouldn't have had enough time to spend here, with me, he replied, with a teasing smile, winking as if to scatter the last trace of tension between them. Besides, they're discharging me by this evening. See, I told you I'd survive. His words were half in jest, yet behind them flickered a quiet need, the need to soothe her and to assure her that everything would, somehow, be all right. He could almost hear her rolling her eyes in that familiar, silent way of hers as she rose and walked to the window. London stretched before them that day in shades of gray, washed in the stubborn drizzle that refused to stop, and yet, within that dull persistence, there was something tender, something fragrant about the silence between the drops. Fred slowly pushed himself up, steadying his breath that still came unevenly, and joined her at the window, as if he needed to stand exactly there, beside her. His arm slipped gently around her waist, his lips brushed her shoulder, a touch filled not with urgency, but with the quiet intimacy that speaks louder than words. The moment, soft, wordless, and still, was broken by the shrill sound of her phone. Anya flinched, reaching for her coat draped over the chair, fizzing the phone from the pocket. The screen showed a private number. Again. The second time that day. Her finger hovered above the green icon, caught between answering and silence. "What's wrong?" Fred asked, softly, catching the shift in her expression. "Someone's been calling me from a private number twice today. I'm not sure I want to answer. Who would have a reason to call you like that?" he asked, a faint line of concern darkening between his brows. "I have no idea." The phone rang again, insistent and relentless, as though whoever was calling refused to give up. "Maybe it's important. You should answer." Anya nodded, took a deep breath, and pressed the button. "Hello?" There was a short silence, not the careless kind, but the deliberate one, the kind that holds back something heavy. Through that pause came only a quiet, nervous breath. "Hello," she repeated, her voice a little louder now, trying to pierce through the stillness. "Good afternoon," came a man's voice at last, stiff but clear. "Is this Anya Woodberg?" "Yes, this is she. Who's calling?" she asked, her heartbeat already quickening in her chest. "Miss Anya, it's Ezra." The name echoed in her mind like an old, dust-covered whisper. Ezra. She looked at Fred, eyes wide now. There weren't many Ezras in her life. In fact, there had only ever been one. "Ezra?" she asked, her voice trembling, barely daring to believe what she'd just heard. "Yes." He paused briefly, as though choosing his next words carefully. "Do you remember me, Miss Woodberg?" "How could I ever forget you?" she whispered, her tone trembling with that fragile awe that belongs to reunions with lost pieces of oneself. "Ezra, is it really you?" "It's me." He had been a part of her childhood, a steady presence woven into her earliest days, the man who had worked on her parents' estate, who had known all their mischievous games, who had protected both her and Elizabeth, who had filled their summers with laughter and secret adventures, and comforted their tears when the world turned harsh. He had been the quiet guardian of their small universe. And now, after all those years, he was calling her. But why now? How had he found her? "Ezra, God, it's been so long. How are you?" "I wish I could tell you I'm well," he said, "but I'm not, Miss Woodberg. Please, call me Anya." She could hear him searching for words, words that were heavy, the kind one struggles to form, and in her chest, a quiet dread began to spread, stretching, tightening, until it filled her entirely. "I'm calling from a private number because things are complicated," he said at last. "I didn't want anyone to know I was the one who told you this, but you deserve to hear it. I couldn't keep it from you." "You sound serious," she said, glancing at Fred, who now pressed his fingers against his lips, as though bracing himself for whatever was coming. "What happened?" Ezra took a long, audible breath. "Anya, your father has passed away." The words cut through the air like a blade. Her knees buckled, and the ground seemed to vanish beneath her. Only Fred's arms, suddenly around her, kept her from collapsing entirely. But she no longer saw him. She saw only emptiness. "I'm so sorry that it had to be me who told you," Ezra continued, his voice heavy with guilt. "But I couldn't live with myself knowing no one had." Her throat closed around the ache. Every word she managed to say came out broken and small. "Ezra, no. Please, tell me that's not true. Tell me this is just some horrible mistake." Fred guided her to the bed, sitting beside her as her hands clutched the blanket, desperate for something solid in a world that had just fallen apart. "I wish it was a mistake," Ezra said quietly. "But it isn't. Mr. Ryan, he fell into the lake of the estate. They say he slipped off the dock, hit his head, and lost consciousness. They found his body the next morning." Her hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes widened in disbelief. Thoughts shattered like glass inside her skull. Father, lake, death. No one had told her. Not her mother, not her sister, not James. Only Ezra. Only him, the keeper of truths no one else dared to speak. "It happened Tuesday evening," Ezra continued softly. "The funeral's in 3 days. I know I'm asking a lot, but you need to come. You have the right to say goodbye. I'll be there." Tears spilled down her face, large and silent, dignified in their pain. Fred gathered her close, holding her in a way that offered not comfort, but something deeper, safety in a collapsing world. "I'll come tomorrow," she whispered through her tears. "I'll be waiting," he said. "Ezra, thank you for telling me. I couldn't stay silent. You deserve the truth. I'll see you tomorrow." The line went dead before she could answer. The phone slipped from her ear. Her hands trembled uncontrollably, and her heart fluttering like a trapped bird. She buried her face in her palms and finally let herself break. Fred, silent and steady, held her close, his voice barely a whisper. "Your father," I heard. And he held her there, firm and patient, as she wept into the silence that spoke the words neither of them could say. She hadn't known this would happen. She couldn't have prepared for it. She wasn't ready to accept it. The pain was unbearable, physical, tearing through her chest as if her heart itself were being ripped apart. 8 years had passed without a glance, without a word, without a letter. Her father had once told her she was dead to him, and he had meant every word. And yet, now that he was truly gone, she felt only regret. Vast, suffocating regret. Regret for not trying harder, for not doing more. Worse still was the silence from her family. Neither Delara, nor Elizabeth, nor James had told her. How could Ryan Woodberg die beside the lake he knew better than anyone? The lake where he had spent hours fishing and talking, where he had built so many of her memories. How could he slip, fall, and simply vanish? "I have to go back there tomorrow. I'm coming with you." "No, you're not. Matilda. Matilda will be fine with my parents. You need me." "But—" "No buts, Anya," he interrupted gently, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. "Let me take you." Her tears still streamed freely as he wiped them away, his fingers tracing the red marks sorrow had left on her skin. "I'm so sorry about your father," he whispered. Thank you," she breathed, trembling, sinking into his arms. He wrapped her close, resting his chin atop her head, wordless. "Do you want Kai to stay with my parents tonight?" he asked softly. "Please, I don't want her to see me like this. I need to pull myself together." "Then let yourself grieve, Anya," he murmured. And as his words lingered in the air, Anya felt the grief rise, breaking over her like a tide she could no longer resist. Her thoughts, splintered and desperate, reached out toward her father. "I love my dad. I've always loved him, and I always will. I just want him back. Please. I didn't have enough time. We didn't have enough time. Bring him back to me. Please, bring him back now. Don't take him from me. I'm not ready. I'll be good. I promise I'll be good. I'll take better care of my family. I'll be a better person, and he'll be here, and things will be like they used to be. Maybe even better. Dad, I love you. Please, don't leave me. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant to be so bad that you'd disown me and throw me out of your life. I tried to be good after I left, but I think I failed. Didn't I? Couldn't you stay for me? I promise I'll try harder. Harder than ever. I'll be better. I'll take care of you. I promise I'll love you more. I wonder if you still loved me. Just don't leave me. Please. Dad, come back." She lay curled in his arms, in her own bed, in a house far from the noise of the city, while the scent of wood and old walls seemed to breathe along with them. She slept peacefully, as if she had finally found a place where both her heart and her body could rest, while he remained awake, his thoughts chasing and overwhelming him, refusing to let him close his eyes. He couldn't quite understand how she had managed to surrender to sleep after a day in which every moment carried its own weight, after a passion that had both drained and freed them. Yet he knew her rest was necessary, that behind it hid both weariness and escape, while he himself was consumed by a restlessness he could not quiet. His attention kept returning to her, to the gentle weight of her head resting on his chest, to her hair scattered across his skin, to the rhythm of her breathing that tethered him to the moment and at the same time made him feel his own vulnerability more deeply than ever before. In her life, there were depths he had only begun to glimpse, and into which he had stepped knowingly, despite the uncertainty. He was aware of the tangled ties surrounding her, had willingly accepted the weight of her world, but now, as he watched her sleep in the quiet, it felt as though he was facing something far greater than he could have imagined. She was beautiful in her simplicity, her body wrapped in warmth, its lines capable of drawing him in with a single touch, but it was her eyes that undid him. Eyes that turned into the sea when they met his, shifting in color and depth, hiding secrets he could uncover only in those rare moments when she was closest, when she gave herself over without hesitation. He had never before met a gaze that could deceive him so sweetly, enchant him so completely, and make him so powerless to turn away. He moved quietly, but even in half-sleep, she sensed his absence, guided by instincts that recognized him before her mind did. Her brow furrowed faintly, in sleepy protest, and a slurred whisper slipped into the stillness of the room. "Where are you going?" she murmured, still caught in the haze of dreams. He leaned closer and answered softly, "I thought, I might head out." Without opening her eyes, with just the faintest flutter of lashes, she whispered, "No, stay tonight. It's late. You're tired. And I can't open my eyes." Her voice carried both a plea and a confession, that fragile note of needing him near. "Are you sure?" he asked, and in his quiet tone, there was the fear of intruding where he wasn't meant to stay. "I'm sure. I need you here, next to me," she said with a sleepy smile, tender but honest, then added through a drowsy laugh, "You can use my toothbrush if it doesn't gross you out. I don't have a spare one. My mouth's clean, I think. You've already kissed me, so the toothbrush shouldn't be a problem." He interrupted her gently, his voice carrying a smile, not to answer but to stop the innocent rambling that softened him entirely. He rose quietly, and as he walked toward the bathroom, he felt her drowsy gaze follow him beneath her half-closed lashes. He paused before the mirror, staring at his reflection. His face looked different now, as though her nearness had reshaped it. It seemed calmer, almost peaceful, as if it had finally found its home. He washed his face, took her toothbrush, feeling an odd intimacy in such a simple gesture, and when he turned off the light behind him, the room he returned to felt even warmer. She was already curled beneath the blanket, facing the door, her lips curved in a faint smile, one eye open just enough to let him know she felt him there. When he smiled back, she had already drifted off again, as though her peace depended on the certainty of his presence. He lay down beside her. They didn't draw close immediately, not like lovers perpetually hungry for each other, but lingered in that fragile stillness, as if each carried memories that could still burn at the slightest touch. Yet the silence couldn't hold. She stirred, pressed herself against him, wrapping him with her leg and shoulder, seeking the warmth and safety that only he could give. "Will I have to sneak out in the morning?" he asked, smiling into the dimness. "I won't let you leave," she murmured, curling against his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat lulling her back to sleep. His quiet laughter vibrated through her, and she groaned in half-sleep before he whispered, "Sorry, go back to sleep." Peace settled over the room like a warm blanket. She drifted deeper into slumber, safe in his arms. But he couldn't close his eyes. In the darkness, his gaze fell on a framed photograph hanging on the wall. It was a picture of their daughter, smiling, bright, her eyes filled with a world of color. He watched that smile, that wind-tossed hair, those eyes shining from another time, and felt a strange weight settle over him, as though he was looking at a past that hadn't belonged to him, but had somehow become more precious than his own breath. In that picture lay the truth of everything missed, everything left unsaid, but also a quiet promise that nothing was truly over. And as she slept curled beside him, and he lay awake in the dark, he knew that within that silence began something he would never again be able to escape. He brushed his hand gently over Anya's shoulder, so softly it was almost imperceptible, as though he feared that even the lightest touch might pull her out of that fragile refuge of sleep. She didn't stir, except for the faint sigh that slipped from her nose, a sound steeped in weariness and sorrow. She was asleep, yet he knew her dreams were not peaceful. Inside them, images and feelings swirled restlessly, seeking a way out that waking life never granted. Her face, serene and still at first glance, carried traces of pain, the kind invisible in daylight, but unbearable in the stillness of night. Her shoulder was still damp from the unconscious tears that had surfaced as she drifted off, and he had seen them, wiped them away, and kept silent, as though silence was the only answer worthy of what he didn't know how to heal. He knew it wasn't his place to mend the past. He couldn't turn back time, couldn't undo the shared mistakes, nor heal the wounds left by others. But he could stay. He could be there, present and quiet, not as a savior or a hero, but simply as someone who wouldn't leave, who wouldn't give up when everything became too heavy, who would sit beside her in wordless company when she lost the strength to speak, and who would hold her when she fell apart. Only when the room had completely stilled did he close his eyes, unaware of the exact moment when sleep deceived him and drew him under. He woke to a whisper. Fred. He opened his eyes and saw Anya beside him, awake, bathed in the first thin ribbons of morning light that slipped through the half-lowered blinds of her small home outside London. Her eyes, bright and elusive, looked at him with something he couldn't name. It wasn't pure happiness, nor utter sorrow, not just hope, nor simple despair, but a mixture of all of it, an ocean carrying everything that remained alive within her. "Are you awake?" she asked softly, as though afraid of the answer in that fragile moment. "I am," he replied simply, pressing a gentle kiss to her forehead, with the care of someone who knows that every gesture is a gift, not a habit. She closed her eyes for a moment, as if that brief blink might help her preserve the moment inside herself. Then she opened them again and took him in with her gaze, as though searching in his eyes for a promise that words could never express. "You know, when you came here with me yesterday, I didn't know if I'd be able to make you stay. I didn't know whether I needed comfort or just someone to sit in silence beside me. But now I just know I couldn't have borne it if you'd gone." Fred didn't answer. He simply lifted the blanket and drew her closer, remaining beside her in the hush of morning, while life, despite everything, went on. Her words lingered between them like an unbreakable bridge, and he knew that sometimes silence speaks more truth than any vow. Yet in her thoughts, something unspoken echoed, something she hadn't voiced aloud. Somewhere in the distance, deep within her memory, still lived the voice of her father, the same voice that had been both comfort and wound, the shadow of a love she hadn't been able to save. Fred lay on his back, arms at his sides, staring at the ceiling, while the sound of her breathing filled his chest like the ebb and flow of a tide, restless, eternal, and quiet. She was there, right beside him, and though her body appeared calm, he knew, in every part of himself, that inside her still raged a storm he could not stop. He looked at her carefully, almost reverently, as though even his gaze might wake her. Her lips were slightly parted, her lashes still, yet even in sleep, her face carried all the things she hadn't been able to say before she'd finally surrendered to exhaustion. She held so much within her, pain, memory, endurance, and still she was tender, fragile, and vulnerable in a way that made her seem even more real. He had never watched her this long before. He had loved her, desired her, protected her, but now, seeing her like this, broken and silent, she was more beautiful than ever, because she was real, without armor, without defense. He didn't know much about grieving a father who had turned away, or what kind of emptiness remained when 8 years of absence couldn't erase love. But he knew what it looked like when a woman broke. He knew he was watching a heart that had lost its root. He thought of their daughter, Kai, of the battles Anya had fought to become the mother she was. No one had seen how many nights she cried when Kai had a fever, how her hands trembled with fear the first time the little girl scraped her knee, how hard she tried to be brave when there was no strength left to borrow. And here she was now, broken inside, yet still here, beside him, tender and steadfast as the morning dew. Fred didn't know what the new day would bring. He didn't know if her family would open their doors, if forgiveness would ever come, or if it would simply pass her by like a shadow from the past. But he knew one thing: he wouldn't leave. If she ever asked him to go, he would. But until then, as long as she let him stay, he would remain. Not for himself, but for her. For the way she looked at him when she thought she was alone. For the quiet plea in her voice when she asked him to stay. For the way she held on to him when she no longer knew where she belonged. He brushed his fingers lightly over her arm, barely touching her, careful not to disturb the peace she so desperately needed, and whispered, more to himself than to her, "You can fall apart, Anya. I'll hold you until you're whole again." He closed his eyes, uncertain whether sleep would come, but knowing, with absolute clarity, that in that single moment he had felt the truest kind of love, not the loud, demanding kind, but the rarest and most precious of all, the love that guards another person's heart as though it was your own.